All right, welcome everybody. The last video we did, we talked about a couple things. Boeing. We talked about RIOT blockchain. I probably spent a little too much time talking about that basing action in RIOT, and also a trade called WULF, TeraWulf, in the crypto phase. Today, TeraWulf up 18%. So our scans picked that up, and one of the neat things is I think the market is in this rotational grind. So we're getting select stocks moving. We saw what happened with Netflix. It's like all in one. They go to markets, see one big move and in a market, and money just chases that. So today, RIOT didn't have the same type of gains that TeraWulf did. The question now becomes, is there more upside? And how, if you didn't get in it, how do you chase this market? So for short-term traders, this is a really good, I think, a momentum play. The volume was pretty strong today. I mean, obviously, it's 18% move, the momentum of the volume and the relative strength. Again, this is a 60-minute chart. Let's go down and drop this down to a daily chart and see what the person's pivots look like. And we'll talk about entry points for a trade you may have missed that has further potential. So bottom line is we see a lot of markets that have these big breakouts and then they fail right back down again. But this one's been building over time. So I think the obvious point is, without using pivots, to look at old highs and moving average points of breakouts. So that's around 565. So bottom line is you got to watch this one on an intraday basis, like a 15-minute, a 5-minute, something like that. But if you pull back into like the 538 to 550 zone, even despite the fact we're all the way up at 620, that's where there would be a better edge or value. Maybe it's 561. And so what my comment is about why do we look at the shorter time frame indicators is because let's say we do get the pullback down in that range. You use the 5-minute pullback and then look for maybe a PPS buy signal. That's the now you'll find that on either Genesis Trade Navigator, the PPS indicator, obviously worth a look-see. It's on Charles Schwab, one of the best platforms out there. So Charles Schwab Thinkorswim has the PPS buy-sell indicators, and you can combine that with the daily person's pivots. And that's what you see on your chart right here. In fact, let me bring in this other indicator tool. It's on balance volume with a little moving average crossover feature on it. And then on TradeStation, this is my proprietary momentum volume indicator. So bottom line is, if we're looking for the market to be bullish, some days the market just comes and it just held that pivot support and just took off like a bat out of hell, up 18%. So I would look for the market to pull back to value. Maybe it's 550, 538 to 560. Let's call it, not to be too precise, but somewhere in that range. If we do get a pullback, watch for a 5-minute PPS buy signal. So the market pulls back, look for a buy signal, and then go with the trend. I wouldn't want to see this trade take out. Obviously, if it's very strong and it has more momentum to the upside, you don't want to see it take out, let's say, the 490-ish area. So TeraWulf, I think, still has a lot more upside. All right, next, RIOT blockchain. In the crypto world, RIOT didn't get any attention today, so maybe there's a delayed reaction. As a disclosure, we have this in our portfolio of JPAM, J-Person Asset Management. We're long from a lot lower level. So would I add to this trade? I would, but I would, again, same situation. There's a gap down here. We'd look to see a gap fill at around maybe 920 and then go from there. But I do believe that the crypto environment has a lot more upside potential in the days and weeks ahead. So ahead of at least the election. And more importantly, there was another trade that I gave out in the last video, was to look for Boeing. And then today, news is out that, again, that they're going to, at least the unions are going to tentatively accept the deal on the pay rate hike. So that's why we gapped up about 4. We initially were up around 4%, something of that nature, and ended up around 3% higher for the day. So Boeing, I'm not quite sure. That's one that's a very expensive stock. So short-term traders aren't going to want to trade that one, except for maybe options. And I don't really think it's an optionable position at this point with the gap up. So you got to give it a little bit more time. Friday or last week when I did the last update, I said, I think Russell's got one more pullback and I want to unload some of the longs, and I want to see that pullback to reload. So again, we did see a downsize move today in the Russell. So the indicators are working well. What indicator helped allude to the fact that the market may have had that pullback that I was suggesting in the last YouTube video? Number one, the relative volume was starting to weaken as we were testing the highs. And so you made a new high, it pulled back, it probed the high, no volume breaking out. So the momentum volume indicator didn't really reflect a lot of volume. So, when a market goes back up and tests a high, if there's not a strong relative volume performance and it keeps getting weaker, it's not a good sign, at least not in my case. So, or what I'm looking for. So what downside move could we see? I wouldn't be surprised to see if this market moved and extended into like 217, 218 over the next couple days. And then I would be therefore willing to look to reload in the December, and I'll probably do spreads on the IWM because they're still very expensive. And I'm thinking if we pull back, just to give you an idea, to the let's say 18, maybe the 216 zone, I'll probably do a 220. I always like to do wide with decent theta, in other words, higher time frame. So I'm looking at the December 20th expiration options. I would probably on that pullback reload with what would be, I consider, the realm of reality for option, the stock or the ETF in this case, to get back up to a decent level. So 220, I would entertain like something like the 233 or 232, a 12 wide, up to a 235 leg, which would be almost a long 220s. Let's say short the 235s if the premiums are present there and give me an edge. That's a 15 wide spread. I would consider that. Why am I selling upside premium against the call, the lower strike call? One, to deflect or not deflect, but to reduce my cost basis in the trade, because I don't think 235 is all that possible. And why spend so much money? And I'm certainly not thinking that 235, the premiums with that much time frame going out to December are going to be too expensive. So that's my 2 cents there. There's other things that I think we could take a look at that I am looking for our own live trade room and my advisory service. I think Hewlett Packard pulls back. I mean, whether we get into my exact numbers, I'm looking for maybe the max downside here around 34 and change, 36.80 to 34.15 in Hewlett Packard. I think you can split fill yourself there, meaning buy a little bit, and I already did fill some of those. If you were listening to the newsletter over the weekend, today we did get enacted or initiated a half position there, and then the other half, hopefully we get a pullback, a deeper pullback, and I quite frankly, I don't know if we're going to get as far down as I want to see it, but bottom line is we could get a move into like 34. In betting world, let's see, MGM Grand, not DraftKings. I think MGM has got some strong potential, and again, with today's relative weakness, it didn't come in enough for me to get filled. I would like to see that get down maybe into the bottom end. It broke out, as you can see, and it pulled back. Now, where did it pull back? Right against the highs of where it broke out from. So again, the average of all of this sideways range was old resistance turned into new support. So I'll give it one more day to see if this levels hold. I would like to see the market pull back to the low end of the trading range and get to that zone. We've got a lot of stuff coming out this week with earnings, Whirlpool. I mean, there's a few other choice companies coming out with earnings this week. There's before the bell, GE, Aerospace. This is for Tuesday morning before the open. 3M, Sherwin-Williams, Verizon. I really didn't see a whole lot of unusual option activity, and I got to be honest with you. I think that there's too much election jitters in the market. We're not maybe going to grind very far, or maybe there's a stock or two that could break out. If there is anything, perhaps it's more in line with technology. Texas Instruments comes out after the market closed. I didn't notice any unusual volume activity there. Later in the week, Wednesday, we've got a lot of economic reports to contend with, at least keep us busy until, quote unquote, the elections. Beige book comes out. That means that 2 weeks from now, once that beige book comes out on Wednesday, that's your cue that the Federal Reserve's got their meeting in 2 weeks. So this week, we get through this week with a couple, I would say important but non-event economic numbers: housing sales, Kansas City survey, the beige book, durable goods. That might help give us an idea whether or not we're selling washers and dryers. And Whirlpool, of course, has got earnings, and that's what I was going to tie that into. After the close Wednesday, we have Whirlpool coming out. ServiceNow has been a big one. Gold breaking out to new highs. Newmont Mining might finally see some more upside. So I'm kind of staying away from the stocks that might have some positive earnings, but still be interest could be reduced due to the fact we have this, election process coming up. So one of the other areas that I think we could be looking at ahead of the pre-election jitters and post-election volatility is, I believe, because of the basic fundamentals of central bank easing. And this week, what should probably take first and foremost, attention would be the International Monetary Fund's banking meeting, if we get any insights on what central bankers' intentions are for future rate cuts and their outlook for global economic conditions. But I think that we need to look at seasonal trends, because we are closing out the quarter and the year soon, right? I mean, it seems like we just started, it's October, but when we get into November, we have a lot of different seasonality trends that develop. Airlines pick up again. So maybe we see maybe not JetBlue, but Southwest Airlines, which has earnings, LUV, going into November. People over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house they go for Thanksgiving and the holidays. You get then again, people start scheduling winter vacations for 2025 and those kind of things. So we do see a seasonality for airlines to get back in the mix. Regional banks, it's time to jump in on regional banks, and they've already had a good run. But that's the thing: if you get a pullback between now and say after the election or so, that's the factor that weighs on the Russell. So that meets within my thesis that we get a pullback in IWM and then we reload to the long side of the Russell, because regional banks is a strong seasonal strength as we get into November and through into early December. Biotech's one no one's really talking about, and you got a lot of stocks in the biotech space. Biogen down in 180, 185 zone that might present some buying opportunities near term. That's Biogen. Amgen's gotten beaten up. So there's a lot of things out there. We have a stock that we were looking at and are currently taking a position in the biotech world, and it's called Insight Pharmaceutical, INCY. Now, this isn't really doing anything. We're long right around this zone right here. And they signed with their acne medicine. They signed you want to call it an influencer, Dr. Pimple Popper, and for their acne medicine drug. Again, it's not going anywhere very far, very fast, but I think this trading range is pulled back enough to give people an opportunity to look at some of these biotech names that nobody has been paying any attention to in recent history, because it's been Apple, it's been, again, the NVIDIA, and the news, it's going to be focused on earnings. But looking ahead, and that's what I'm trying to help us with, biotech, the IBB specifically, look at this chart, gone nowhere, sideways fast. When you take a look at a behemoth, and it's BIIB, Biogen, for example, it's dropping down. Look at the momentum of my volume indicators doing. The more, I guess you want to say, the lower it goes, or at least testing the lows. So it doesn't look like there's long liquidation in here as much as maybe people are just trading it, but people are acquiring it. And that's what that momentum volume suggesting, that people, as the market's going down and you see volume improving, it's not getting as bearish, and it might have a short-term play to the upside. So those are the kind of trades that I'm looking for going forward. But in any event, I know we did bring WULF to your attention in the last video, and I spent a little too much time how to trade RIOT and RIOT blockchain, for example, which I do like, and I still stick to that. Watch the previous video. This one still has a dynamic rounding base. Again, this is a daily chart, and the volume looks pretty impressive. On balance volume racing up to where it was at old highs when the stock was trading near $12. So I think any forceful dip in the market is giving an opportunity in the crypto world, especially some of these top names. And when you see one stock like TeraWulf take off and everyone else has paused, it's probably because, well, RIOT's already kind of had a move. So today it had a vacation day, let's say. Last but not least, China. What are we doing with China-related names? And I'm still. It's interesting. I'm being maybe patient, maybe too patient, because I'm waiting for the market to pull back and to fill this gap. We spent a lot of time on this one as well. Nothing new to change the story. The volume is weakening here, so I'm going to be more patient. I'm not chasing it. 4 days or so in a row, testing this $100 mark, and hasn't broken through. But one thing's absent down here. There's no PPS buy signal, and there's no positive flip of the momentum of the volume down here. So I'd like to see a PPS buy or an improvement in volume. And then I'd say, okay, let's change and move up our bids on this one too. So that's what I got going on in the marketplace. With that said, we'll update you the next video. Thanks for listening. And as always, if you like what you see, give a thumbs up, and you can always subscribe. You get these videos as soon as they're updated. And if you want to know more about how to use Person's indicators, obviously they're on Genesis software. We're on TradeStation. That's the platform I'm sharing with you here. We have them on Thinkorswim. We have them again on wealth charts, as I mentioned, a good product there. So if you're interested in more about that, just reach out and say, hey, how do I get, there's some videos on Person's Planet website of how to access this data. And as always, we have trading courses on the website as well that you can pick up for really inexpensive and study on your own. So with that said, I'll see you at the next update video, and we'll see how some of these, if we get some earnings opportunities and some unusual option activity, we'll see if we can pick some of that up via the stock trades. Thanks everyone for listening. Have a great trading day. And looks like if you're watching Monday Night Football in the States, the Ravens, oh man, what a job they're doing on Tampa. So have a great evening, everyone. Take care.